Hello and welcome to K News. This is Hardik Trivedi. Let's have a look what is happening in India and in the world. China on Friday asked the US to close down its consulate in Chengdu in retaliation to Washington's decision to shut the Chinese consulate in Houston. A statement by the Chinese Foreign Ministry said China has informed the US Embassy of its decision to withdraw its consent for the establishment and operation of the US Consulate General in Chengdu. This was in response to unilateral decision by the US to shut the Houston consulate. China's decision is legitimate and a necessary response to the unreasonable actions of the US, it said. The US on Wednesday ordered the closure of the Chinese consulate in Houston, a move it said was aimed to protect American intellectual property and private information. Reacting strongly to the US move, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin termed it as an unprecedented escalation and warned retaliatory measures. Wang said the order to close the consulate violates international law and basic norms governing international relations and seriously undermines China-US relations. This is breaking down the bridge of friendship between the Chinese and American people, Wang said. Joe Biden said Wednesday that President Donald Trump was the country's first racist president. The presumptive Democratic presidential nominee's comments came during a virtual town hall organized by the Service Employees International Union, when a questioner complained of racism surrounding the coronavirus outbreak and mentioned the president, referring to it as the China virus. Biden responded by blasting Trump and his spread of racism. The way he deals with the people based on the color of their skin, their national origin, where they come from, is absolutely sickening, the former vice president said. No sitting president has ever done this, no Republican nor the Democratic president. We have had racists and they have existed. Biden also suggested that Trump is using race as a wedge to distract from his mishandling of the pandemic. Many presidents, including the nation's first, George Washington, owned slaves. President Woodrow Wilson, the country's 28th president, is having his name removed from the Princeton University's public policy school after recent protests against institutional racism and police brutality. Wilson, who served in the early 28th century, supported segregation and imposed it on several federal agencies. Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot rode a bus with Congress lawmakers to Raj Bhavan on Friday afternoon to pursue Governor Kalraj Mishra to convene the Rajasthan Assembly by Monday to let him face a trust vote. Gehlot's meeting with the governor came moments after he accused Raj Bhavan of holding back orders to convene the assembly by Monday to let him prove his majority in the 200-member assembly. Gehlot, who has been fighting off a rebellion led by his former deputy Sachin Pilot for weeks, wants to clear the flow test between Pilot's camp, or the rival Bharatiya Janata Party is able to deplete the ruling party's numbers. He told reporters before leaving for the Raj Bhavan that he had requested Kalraj Mishra to convene the assembly session at that 20-minute meeting on Thursday and followed up with a phone conversation. But the governor was under pressure from the top, he said, a reference to the BJP-led central government. As 4 buses, Gehlot was sitting in one of them, drove into Raj Bhavan. Transport Minister Pratap Singh told reporters what Gehlot would tell Kalraj Mishra. We have the majority The government has the support of 109 MLAs, Pratap Singh said. This is the first time that the Ashok Gehlot's team has put a number on the lawmakers that it expects to support the ruling government in the assembly. In a major crackdown of trafficking of pharmaceutical opioids across the country, the Punjab police on Friday said it has busted a drug cartel operating across 11 states and arrested 20 people. The Punjab police also termed the action as one of the biggest crackdowns on supply of pharmaceutical opioids across the country. 20 people have been arrested with a huge cache of drugs, proceeds, money and 5 vehicles in an operation that spanned over 8 weeks, Punjab DGP Dinkar Gupta said. Giving details of the case and the investigations, he said the drug cartel known as the Agra Gang was pushing pharmaceutical opioids into the markets all across India by diverting drugs in huge quantities from the manufacturers, suppliers, wholesalers and retail chemists. Of the 20 people arrested so far, 16 are from Punjab, 2 from UP and 1 each from Haryana and Delhi, the Director General of Police said in a statement. With the arrest of these gang members, a well-oiled network of drug syndicate pushing consignments to the tune of 10 to 12 crore of intoxicating pharmaceutical opioids in the form of tablet, capsules, injections and syrups per month into Punjab and other parts of the country has been totally smashed, and thousands of youth who were or could have got hooked to these drugs have been saved from drug abuse and addiction, he said. The gang was busted by Barnala police team comprising Prayag Jain IPS and other officers working under the supervision of SSP Sandeep Goel. The arrest of 20 men, including one of the cartel's kingpins, were made from various locations in Punjab, Haryana, West Bengal, Uttar Pradesh and Delhi. As many as 27 lakh tablets, capsules, injections and syrup bottles were seized from them, along with drug proceeds money of rupees 70 lakhs, said Gupta. The Brihad Mumbai Municipal Corporation has said only 5 people should participate in arrival and immersion processions of domestic Lord Ganesh idols during the Ganpati festival next month in view of the COVID-19 pandemic. The BMC, which is spearheading Mumbai's fight against coronavirus, on Thursday made a special appeal to citizens in this regard ahead of the festival to curb the spread of COVID-19 in the metropolis, which has recorded more than 1 lakh cases and nearly 6,000 deaths so far, requesting people to refrain from doing any act that leads to the spread of COVID-19. The civic body in a release warned that violators may invite strict action under relevant sections of the Epidemic Act 1897, the Disaster Management Act 2005 and the Indian Penal Code. This year the festival starts from August 22. The civic body said home installed Ganpati idols should be made using eco-friendly materials and their height should not be more than 2 feet, instead of using idols made of clay. If possible, worship metal or marble idols. The BMC urged the citizens. The civic body asked people to carry out immersion of eco-friendly Ganpatis at home. If that is not possible, the idols should be immersed in artificial lakes, it said. The BMC said talking out a common procession of domestic idols from a housing society or a building should be avoided. Also, children and elderly persons should not be allowed to visit immersion sites, BMC said. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal on Thursday said the government is providing plasma for free and people do not need to buy or sell it. Kejriwal inspected a redevelopment project at Chandni Chowk on Thursday. He spoke about the adequate availability of plasma on the sidelines of his visit, according to a statement. We are giving free plasma to people. We have more than 500 plasma samples as stock in ILBS hospital. What is the need of selling and buying plasma if the government is providing plasma for free? People do not need to buy plasma because all plasma blood groups are available there. Delhi Health Minister Satyendra Jain on Wednesday said strict action will be taken if it is found that monetary transaction was done during the process of plasma donation for any COVID-19 patient. A first of its kind plasma bank in the country was recently set up at the Institute of Liver and Biliary Science in South Delhi. Moves to dilute a new bankruptcy law caused disagreements between Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government and the central bank, according to former Reserve Bank of India Governor Urjit Patel. The rift centered around a February 2018 circular issued by the RBI, which forced banks to immediately classify borrowers as defaulters when they delayed repayments, and which barred defaulting company founders from trying to buy back their firms during insolvency auctions. In a book released Friday, Patel, who headed the RBI between September 2016 and his unexpected resignation in December 2018, said the government seemed to lose enthusiasm for the legislation. In the middle of the year, he left the central bank. Instead of buttressing future-proofing the gains thus far, an atmosphere to go easy on the pedal ensued, Patel wrote. Until then, for the most part, the finance minister and I were on the same page, with frequent conversation on enhancing the landmark legislation's operational efficiency. Patel's comment offer a first glimpse into a tussle between the RBI and the government, which led eventually to a U-turn that stunned the Indian business world when the Supreme Court last year struck down the RBI's February circular. Those subsequent changes in the bankruptcy rules risk reversing gains from the efforts to clean one of the world's largest bad loan piles, Patel warned in his book. Rajasthan Governor Kalraj Mishra has no option but to accept the recommendation of the Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot cabinet to convene the assembly session, legal experts said on Friday, referring to constitution schemes on power and duties of governor. They were on the common view that the governor is duty bound by the advice of the cabinet. Amid high political drama unfolding in the state, Gehlot accused Mishra on Friday of being under pressure not to call the assembly session. Gehlot, whose government is facing challenges from 19 rebel Congress MLAs, including his sacked Deputy Chief Minister Sachin Pilot, said the state government requested the governor to call the session, but he had not issued the order. Referring to the 5-judge Constitution Bench judgment in Nabam Revia case, senior advocates Rakesh Dwivedi and Vikas Singh said the Supreme Court has clearly stated that governor is bound by the advice of the cabinet and he has to convene the assembly. Dwivedi said the governor has no discretion and at best he can confer with the chief minister for change of the date to hold the session. Another senior lawyer who refused to be named said that once the cabinet sends a recommendation, the governor is bound to convene a meeting of the assembly for the floor test. It's time for a short break. We'll join you in a short while.
వేసవి అవుతుంది ఫన్ విత్ కూలర్ నంబర్ 1 ఇక చేసుకో మోర్ ఫన్ ఉంటే కూలర్ నంబర్ 1 ఇక డోంట్ రన్ ఫ్రమ్ ద సన్ ఉంటే కెల్స్టా నంబర్ 1 पहली नजर में हो गया मैं दीवाना 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 इतना सुंदर जैसे कोई सपना सुहाना मैं दीवाना दीवाना
कचारिया टाइल्स, जो देखे वो दीवाना।
Welcome back to K News and thank you for watching. Let's continue the streak of news. A new low has been reached in the simmering US-China discord, with the Donald Trump administration forcing the closure of the Chinese consulate in Houston and Beijing vowing to retaliate at what it described as an unprecedented escalation. This unexpected US decision to raise the diplomatic heat on China comes in the wake of a US carrier strike group led by the nuclear-powered USS Nimitz exercising with warships of the Indian Navy's Eastern Fleet on July 20 in the Indian Ocean. The template that framed Sino-Indian relations since 1993 and ensured an extended period of guarded peace and stability is no longer valid. Delhi is now exploring a new level of diplomatic mediation with layered military messaging. The immediate objective for India is return to the pre-Galwan status quo along LAC. It appears that PLA is unlikely to withdraw from the locations it has occupied and fortified in a swift and consensual manner. In reviewing other options, Delhi has revived certain naval maritime possibilities, and these include the likelihood of inviting Australia to join the India-US-Japan trilateral Malabar naval exercises towards the end of the year. This points to reviving the Quad, a group of 4 nations that came under one umbrella for the first time in the aftermath of the December 2004 tsunami. The Reserve Bank of India on Friday said that certain actions undertaken by financial sector regulators and the center to lessen the impact of COVID-19 pandemic has managed to ease operational constraints and helped in maintaining market integrity and resilience in the face of severe risk aversion. Simultaneously, the central bank also warned of bad debts for Indian lenders rising steeply to 12.5% outstanding loans by March next year. The Apex Bank in the 21st issue of its financial stability report indicated that a combination of fiscal, monetary and regulatory interventions on an unprecedented scale with the help of the government and ensured normal functioning of the country's financial markets despite a grim economic outlook earlier this year. In the evolving milieu, while risk management has to be prudent, extreme risk aversion would have adverse outcomes for all. RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das said in his forward to biannual financial stability report released on Friday. The top priority right now for all banks and financial firms should be to hike capital levels and improve resilience, the RBI governor said. The over-leveraged non-financial sector, simmering global geopolitical tensions and economic losses on account of the COVID-19 pandemic are major downside risks to to global economic prospectus. The Reserve Bank of India report stated the country's bad loan ratio was already one of the highest among major global economies at 8.5% at the end of March 2020. The macroeconomic environment takes a turn for worse later this year. The ratio may escalate to 14.7% under the severely stressed economic scenario, the RBI said in its report. India slapped new trade curbs on some of its neighbors in a move primarily seen aimed at keeping Chinese businesses out after a border conflict and worsening economic ties between the two nations. Companies from nations that share a land border with India are barred from bidding for government contracts for goods and services until they register with industry department, according to an official statement. Previously, New Delhi had made it mandatory for suppliers to mention the country of origin on the government's e-marketplace while bidding for tenders. The measure is the latest in a series of steps taken by Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government to wean India away from reliance on China, New Delhi's biggest source of imports. Earlier, the administration banned the use of 59 Chinese apps, while goods purchased from China were delayed at Indian ports after a deadly conflict between the neighbors along a disputed Himalayan border left several soldiers dead on both sides. India's move to firewall key sectors from Chinese presence signals that the South Asian nation is willing to bear costs in the short run in order to reduce exposure of critical sectors, said Harsh Pant, a professor of international relations at King's College London. Such moves are a calculated response to a shape Chinese calculus on the border issue, which is getting serious by the day in the absence of any commitment by the Chinese to resolve it amicably. Veteran BJP leader L.K. Advani today recorded his statement in the 1992 Babri Mosque demolition case before a special CBI court through video conference. The 92-year-old, named among the accused in the case related to the razing of Babri Mosque in Ayodhya, appeared before the special CBI court in Lucknow via video link. During the hearing that lasted 4.5 hours from 11 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., over 100 questions were asked to Mr. Advani by the court. He denied all charges against him, his lawyer said. On Wednesday, Union Home Minister Amit Shah met Mr. Advani. The two leaders spoke for around 30 minutes. The court, through daily hearings, has to complete the trial and deliver its verdict by August 31. The Babri case hearing took place just days before a groundbreaking event planned on August 5 for Ram Temple at Ayodhya. Reports suggested Mr. Advani and other leaders of the Ram Temple movement will also be invited. The 16th century Babri Masjid was pulled down on December 6, 1992 by Hindu activists who believed it was built on the ruins of an ancient temple marking the birthplace of Ram. The S&P BSE Sensex and NSE Nifty 50 indexes came off intraday lows to end on a flat on Friday as losses in banking heavyweights like ICICI, HDFC Twins, Axis Bank, Kotak Mahindra, State Bank of India were offset with gains in Reliance Industries, which rose to a new record high for 6th day in a row. Earlier in the day, Sensex fell as much as 392 points and Nifty briefly dropped below 11,100. However, a record-breaking rally in Reliance Industries contributed over 250 points, towards which helped in a flat closing for markets. The Sensex ended 12 points lower at 38,129, and Nifty 50 index declined 21 points to settle at 11,194. Nifty Private Bank, PSU Bank, Realty, Pharma, Media and Auto indexes also fell over a percentage. Mid and small cap shares ended mixed as Nifty Mid Cap 100 index declined 0.3% and Nifty Small Cap 100 index rose 0.22%. Z Entertainment was top Nifty loser. The stock fell 5% to close at rupees 151. Hindalco, Axis Bank, State Bank of India, GAIL, Grasim Industries, JSW Steel, ICICI, Bharti Infratel and Tata Motors also declined between 2.3 to 3.5% each. On the flip side, Reliance Industries was top Nifty gainer. The stock rose for 6 days in a row on Friday to hit a new record high. India and China have agreed for early and complete disengagement of the troops along the LAC and de-escalation from India-China border areas in accordance with bilateral agreement and protocols, and stressed that full restoration of peace and tranquility was essential for smooth overall developments of bilateral relations, according to an official statement by External Affairs Ministry. The reaffirmation of the need of complete disengagement, de-escalation and full restoration of peace was made in the 17th meeting of the Working Mechanism for Consultation and Coordination on India-China Border Affairs, held on Friday. India was represented by a team led by Joint Secretary Naveen Srivastava of the External Affairs Ministry, and the Chinese team was led by Hong Liang, Director General of the Boundary and Oceanic Affairs Department of China's Foreign Ministry. The talks between the two sides came amid reports of a deadlock from the ground, despite intense negotiations at the military and diplomatic levels. Officials familiar with the issue had said that the disengagement process at some points of the contested LAC, including Pangong, TSO and Dipsang, had virtually halted. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh too had said that it was not possible to guarantee the outcome of talks with China. The Civil Aviation Ministry on Friday extended the restrictions on domestic flights till November 24 in the view of the coronavirus pandemic. A notification by the ministry issued in the evening also said that domestic airfare cap 2 will remain in place till November 24 or until further orders. Domestic flights were suspended on March 25 as the government announced a nationwide lockdown to contain the spread of the disease. Union Aviation Minister Hardeep Puri had earlier this month said that he hoped that the number of domestic flights will reach 55 to 60% of pre-coronavirus levels by Diwali this year. He had also noted a continuous improvement in the domestic air traffic, while stating that it had more than doubled by early July from the 30,000 flyers who boarded flights on May 25, when phased reopening of the sector began after 2 months of suspension. The domestic aviation industry is facing financial losses as they are operating at limited capacity with fares capped for different sectors. The poor load factor has also impacted the industry's capacity to exploit their allowed quota of flights. Country's prominent private carrier Indigo has decided to lay off 10% of its employees. and the global aviation consultancy CAPA has predicted that a couple of Indian airlines may go out of business due to the current financial pressure. That's all for now. Keep watching K News. This is Hardik Trivedi taking your leave. Be alert, be positive, be safe.